Hey y'all, my name is Tamara Andress. I am your Fit and Faith podcast host, and I am pumped to be here. Just me, no words, no scripts, no intros, no outros. I love authenticity. I hope to breed vulnerability, and I usually do this alongside another dreamer, mover, shaker, entrepreneur, passionista is what I love to call them. If you're a dude, then a dude. But I am loving just coming together in community with other people to share their high and low stories, to share their journeys to come back, because I believe ultimately that's where God would have us. He would have us on the mountaintop. And even though we learn a ton in the pit and in the valley, God would want us right now, especially in this season of life, in this time of our culture, to shine. And so here I am. I want to teach you how to shine. I want to be alongside you when you get your glow. I want to catapult you into your calling, whatever that is. So this isn't a fitness podcast. This is not a religious banter, though we preach Jesus all day long. And this is not just about nutrition or health or wealth, though I like some green, and I know you do too. It's not okay for us to not be okay with talking about all of these things in unison. You guys, we don't just need a mental health podcast. We don't just need a fitness podcast. We don't just need a religious, spiritual podcast. It needs to blend. This is what Fit and Faith is all about. It's all about creating alignment, connectivity. It's about pursuing your wholeness and claiming it over your life and over the lives of the loved ones that you have around you in your community. So thank you for tuning in. I would love to get to know you more. You can like, review, subscribe, whatever it is. Send me an email, DM me. It's me. I have an amazing team alongside me, but you guys are getting me for now. So enjoy. I'm so pumped to have a coffee conversation with you, is what I'd love to call them. Don't have my coffee right now, but I have it in my system, as you can see. All the love. Let's do this together and keep going for your dreams, y'all. I am so pumped to have you on the podcast for a multitude of reasons. This is Jamie Dockewicz, by the way. She has been kind of a bystanding inspiration of mine for many years. She has been my only fully paid individually personal trainer, as I did it prior to that for many years myself. And then I was like, I'm not going to pay somebody to do what I already know how to do. But I'll tell you that there is so much power behind that. It actually gives you such a broadened scope of your own ability, but also to have that mental checkout and not have to worry about it.
Absolutely.
I've also just seen how you interact with people and a constant light and joy that you have in your eyes, whether you're at work or whether you're out with somebody. And I've just really enjoyed seeing you operate, even from afar.
Thank you.
We don't really have an intimate relationship, but you know a lot of the same people that I know. We kind of run in the same circles. And also just your fitness journey has been an inspiration to me as a young woman aspiring for similar things in that similar health conscious family environment. So thank you in advance.
Oh, you're most welcome. I appreciate those compliments. It's very sweet.
Of course. And so today I'm excited to just share with people and have you share kind of your own insight into what Fit and Faith means to you. But firstly, let's start in your wheelhouse and kind of just share what your fitness journey, how you are where you are, what it triggered you to even start working out, or what that means to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, going way back,
Yeah.
I would say I started not as a very competitive athlete. And actually, it kind of started in spite years ago when I was about 12 years old.
Okay.
I was in PE, middle school PE, and the PE coach used to separate the fast group from the small group based on gender.
Stop it.
So he would say, okay, the fast group, all the boys, line up, go run the mile or whatever. So then we started asking him, we'd say, Coach Hool, well, what if we're fast?
Yeah.
And then it became this thing to which we were staggered behind the boys. And so then it became just this mission where we were no, let's try and see if we can run with the fast boys, and catch up. And so that was what really kind of prompted me to start delving into a little bit of aggressiveness.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a spoof.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really just to really prove someone wrong.
Sure.
And then moving into high school, I joined the cross country team to hang out with friends. I honestly didn't even know what it was.
Wow.
I was that person that was throwing up on the sidelines. I was dead last. I was wearing a heart rate monitor, just
oh my God.
It was awful. It was awful. And so I like to share that story because for most people that know me from this community, they know that I've been competitive for a long time, but the road was not an easy road to begin with.
Amazing.
So that first semester of freshman year was brutal, and I just stuck with it.
Wow.
And so I know what it's like to be absolutely dead last in a fitness, in the fitness world.
Yeah.
But I also know how the persistence pays off.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of off time as a high school athlete, just saying, okay, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with where I'm performing, so I'm going to start dedicating some time. And then it just kind of evolved. So
was cross country like your only thing that you kind of focused on?
In high school, it was cross country and track. I had previously done softball, and I wasn't good at it.
Okay.
I was an amazing strikeout pitcher because I had the slowest fast pitch.
Nice.
So I had lots of strikeouts because I had a really fast wind up, but an incredibly slow release, and I could strike people out. That was like the secret weapon, but it was pathetic, but it worked.
Otherwise.
So it was kind of another lucky thing.
That's
but
awesome.
once I moved into high school, that's when I started doing cross country and track, and then I progressed into college, and I ran for 2 years at William and Mary.
Nice.
And then I started getting into a season where it wasn't necessarily a positive experience in that competitive world.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a decision about whether or not I was going to continue to be on the team or whether or not I was going to stop.
Yeah.
And so I had made a decision that I was going to stop because I really enjoyed the sport.
Sure.
And I wanted to have it be something that was part of my life. And not just say like, okay, I'm going to stick it out for 4 more years and then never do it again. Yeah. So it became more about just being something that I like to do, but it's taken me probably, I don't know, the better part of 15 years to dissociate from having that be my identity, which is a really, really hard thing to come to terms with. But being a mom has helped me get those priorities straight. And I think wisdom. Yeah. Learning that, because when you do something competitively for such a long time, I think that you can very easily distort your priorities. You put so much of your identity into performance. And then when you're not meeting those goals, whether they're realistic or unrealistic, then it can become something that can be negative. And so over time, it's taken a long time to figure out what kind of role that needs to have in my life and make some adjustments. So
yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because you touched on so many things that I just want to spitfire come back at. But I think the thing that probably settled the most is that that unrealistic versus realistic goals. And I think so many people can resonate with that, whether they've been an athlete, whether they're into fitness or not. I think we tend to do that in so many areas of our life. And then whether it's a job that takes your identity, or whether even sometimes motherhood takes somebody's identity and they don't know themselves outside of their children. And I think there's very much a value to both of those things. And while I think all of us moms are in that motherhood hat and something we own so proudly because it is such a journey, at the same time, we know that, you're a standalone human being too, outside of your children. And sometimes, especially going into adulthood and watching my mom experience all of her kids in that season, she's not a representation of who me and my brother and sister are. She gets to be her own person while we get to be our own person, yet we're all connected. So I think it's really cool to see that you had that time. Did it not really come until after you became a mom that you had that identity check? Yeah,
absolutely. And some of the things were things that were on my heart that were really becoming a distraction, like not having a good race performance or something, and it really meant a lot to me. But then seeing how that affected my mood with my family, and then saying okay, this is preoccupying me over here, and even though I might not be verbalizing it, I'm fixating on that, or I'm focusing on that, and really it's depriving me of the joy in the moment and just kind of being mindful of where I need to be. So it's been a good shift, and sometimes it's hard to figure out where you land, because sometimes it's easy to kind of like want to slide back into those roles of, I mean, you just can become easily distracted in terms of where you want to remain rooted in your identity. And so there's wisdom in that, and it's a huge journey, and it's constantly evolving, but I think it's an important one, especially because I think that because the world is just so demanding for, progress and progression and esteem and recognition and stuff, that it's easy to get on those bandwagons of just trying to be recognized or, and so to be able to come to a place where you can be joyful and content in what you really want your identity to be rooted in, I think that there can be a lot of peace when you can get to that place that says, like, regardless of my work performance or my athletic performance or my performance as a parent, what you choose to be grounded in, I think is the key to being overall in a joyful state.
I totally agree. So that's really, I mean, I feel like it's so good because every time I see you, and I said it at the very beginning, like I always felt that there's just such a sense of peace about you. And I feel like when you know who you are and your identity is recognized by yourself, and then even within like your family, that nuclear family unit, because outside of that, there are lots of varying factors, but for your husband to recognize that, for your kids to know who you are, and for you to praise all parts of who you are is such a cool space, which allows that joy to just naturally exude. It's really cool.
It's definitely a process. Some days you feel like you have it, and other days,
because you're still competing currently, right?
I am.
Okay, so I mean, do you even have a tally of how many races you've ran? That'd be such a cool thing to like really think on.
Well, I know, like, I'm getting ready to do the Allen Stone Run Swim Run, and I think it's going to be their 20th, and I think I've done it 17 times now. That's just one race. I mean, it's probably been, I don't know, hundreds. I mean, it's been hundreds.
Maybe if not closing on 1,000.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
especially
been a
for
lot.
Meets. I mean, track meets in and of itself in one season.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
it's been so I'm coming into 30 years of competing, in basically running or in triathlons or something like that.
What's like your favorite one to choose from?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say there's a couple favorites. I've had some races where I've been able to do it with my brother, and he and I are really close, and he doesn't live here, so like when we get to do something together, that's always a really special bonding time. This year for the Allen Stone, I'm going to do it with Team Hoyt, and I've done it before pushing the jogger for running, but this is going to be a big stretch because I'm actually going to swim. Pulling a child in a boat. And so that is an open water swim. So that's definitely out of my comfort zone. But that's why I'm choosing to do it.
Wow. So because you can, just like you said, you get in the normalcy of things. Even racing becomes normal. Like you lose the jitters. You're like, all right, like you expect the most maybe from yourself, but at the same time, you're like, the pressure's off. I'm doing this because I love it. But here to put yourself even outside of your comfort zone, do something that you love, but also there's that huge element that you're giving back.
Yes.
And
that absolutely.
Makes it just
so. There will be major tears. It'll be very, very challenging, but knowing that you're doing it and enabling somebody else to race is just going to be really, really powerful.
Now, do you get to practice?
Yes. Okay. Yes, you get to practice.
Do you get to practice even for racing, like regular running?
No. In the past, I've just shown up and and done the jogger that way. But for the swim, they do require that you practice ahead of time. So I'm actually starting my first practice this Saturday, which I'm really glad. And I was joking around saying, are there infants available? Am I going to have someone that's larger than me in the boat? But anyway, it'll be fun.
Wow,
so and it'll be a good community of people.
Totally. That's going to be so much fun. I didn't even realize that they could do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so they have you escorted with lifeguards to make sure that everybody's safe in the boat, and then you do it with a partner, but you wear a harness and then you swim. And
so it's partner on, partner off, like, or
I'm
you're
not
actually
exactly
swimming.
sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if you're swimming at the
Together.
same time or if you're taking turns. I'm not sure, but I'll find out on
Yeah,
Saturday.
I'll check back in to ask, because that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So I wanted to shoot back to at the beginning. I had talked about one of the ways that like we kind of connected, and my mom had been training with you for a while prior. You obviously had a relationship with my dad since he worked at the gym with you. But I had this intrigue after I had my second child. I knew that I just needed like a kickstart. And I have always been very body conscious because my dad has always, and my mom both, have been both very athletic and working out since before I ever remember doing it. Plus gymnastics puts you in that mindset of your own individualism. But I remember after having kids, obviously our bodies take on a whole new element. You have the self-conscious pieces, which I surely struggled with my husband, who was like a rock star at the time. I'm like, why do you have to get in the best shape of your life when I'm getting having a baby? I used to say getting fat, and that's horrible because that's totally not what it is. You're giving life and creating life inside of you. Such a blessing. But he did no drinking when I was pregnant, which that's awesome. Most people use it as like a DD. That was his own thing. People think I forced him into it, but I swear I didn't. And then he also chose, I think he chose to go paleo for the first time at that time. Gosh. And so this was, 5 years ago, and most people didn't even really know or do. That wasn't a fad at the time. Gary's always been kind of ahead of the curve in his athleticism and nutritional intake. And I'm like, come on, I want all the carbs right now. We would go out to eat. This is a side story, but we would go out to eat. I specifically remember going to Waterman's. I ordered a crab cake sandwich with the bun and fries. I got up, I went to the restroom, and I came back, and my food came. I had a crab cake sandwich. I still had the bun with broccoli. And I'm like, I didn't order that. And he's like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, nope, no, I didn't.
Where are my fries?
And he's like, oh, well, I felt like you would feel so much better afterwards if you ate this instead, because you're always so full, you never finish your food, and this is like, it's good for you. It's good for the baby. And I was about to come across the table. I'm like, who are you? And he's like, if you eat all of that and you still want your fries, we'll order them. And I'm like, I feel like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And give me fries or we're not going home together. It's pretty much how that's going to work out. So we always joke about that story. And to this day, I remember eating my food, and he's like, so are you so hungry? And I'm like, no. He's like, are you thankful? No. I wanted fries. Next time I'll order it without you there. So funny story. But anyway, so had the baby, knew that I needed to get back into the gym, and having done personal training prior to and really enjoying it, I was exhausted from being a mom, and I didn't have the mental capacity to even think about preparing anything for myself. We made our own baby food. I was nursing almost 2 babies because one was still in diaper. It was just bananas time frame. And Gary said, this is for you. Go and do it. So having that time with you and feeling such a crazy transformation, you approached fitness in a way that I had never been introduced to. So I'd love for you to kind of share what that is and how it's different than what I feel, honestly, 99% of people do. And then I can share a little bit about the results that I had during that time frame.
Okay, sure, absolutely. So I wish that I had the magic capacity to be able to allow someone to spend an hour or 2 once or twice a week with me and then just have these transformations that occur. But realistically, there's so much more that that affects your body and how it responds to exercise that happen outside of the gym. And so I feel like I have a responsibility to share all of those tips. So to give you the total package. Because as a new mom, for example, you're sleep deprived. So, I knew that we had to hit some of those wellness topics and make sure, how is your hydration? How is your sleeping? Realizing that it's interrupted sleep and trying to maximize, what you get, so that you're getting good quality sleep. So I really like functioning more as an educator, and I have that background. I was a third grade teacher prior to becoming a personal trainer, and I think that just kind of becomes part of my role.
Yeah.
Even today I was telling clients, hey, I'm going to be sending you a podcast about the quality of sleep. I really want you to listen to it, as part of your homework, just because I think that the more educated people can become about taking care of their bodies, then they get the most bang for their buck.
So true.
So sleep is a huge factor, obviously hydration, but the quality of nutrition is just so critical. And you'll see people whose bodies don't change and they are spending a tremendous amount of time at the gym. And really what you choose to put into your body, good, bad, or somewhere in the middle, has probably an even more profound impact than people might realize. And so over the years, it's been, definitely trying to take people and having them achieve their goals related to the outside, but also realizing this is a total package deal. So, being mindful of the body in terms of appreciating rest, and that means learning how to recover correctly, stretching.
Absolutely.
So things, as things have evolved for me personally over the years, I try to help people learn along the way. And I certainly don't shy away from being honest about I've made horrible mistakes. Just things that I thought were the right way, or that, I needed to do more of this to be successful, or I needed to work out more to look a certain way. And instead, quite honestly, sometimes it was doing the complete opposite. So trying to look at the body on the whole. And then just, I think that it's really important to try and see the individual, see what's driving their goals. See where their strengths are mentally as well as emotionally, and try to just be open to people. Share a lot when they're training, whether it's in a small group or individually, to try and just be a positive influence. And it certainly doesn't mean trying to have unrealistic expectations or walk around, like I have all the answers, but at least just be open to questions, or if I happen to notice something about someone, maybe ask a few questions to try and be a support.
That's really good.
So it's a multifaceted job. It's much more than just exercise. There's a lot of depth there, and I think to do a good job, it requires just kind of hitting all those wellness topics. And a lot of that is emotional, and a lot of it is spiritual, and spiritual can mean different things to different people. And so just being respectful of that, and trying to just give people space to be able to share what they want to share, or ask questions without necessarily forcing something, my own personal beliefs on someone else. But I think that's why it's been so positive. Just because I can be a drill sergeant all day long, but sometimes people need, or most of the time, people need a lot more than that.
So true.
So if somebody can walk away and they've learned how to take better care of their body, then that's a win for me. And then all the other stuff kind of just naturally happens. So if you can teach good habits about eating and sleeping, and then that kind of makes my job a whole lot easier, because then they're seeing the results of taking care of their body as a temple.
Definitely.
And then when they're with me, then it's just gravy. So if they, if they've stayed up late and they've watched TV, or they've been out for a night drinking, and then they come the next morning, like their performance isn't going to be nearly as good. And so it doesn't take a lot of conversations to say, like, okay, well, when you're well hydrated and you're well rested, like your performance in the gym as well as in your home and in your workplace is going to be better. And it's just about making choices.
It's so true. And it's not an easy thing to do, and that's like, I think, why some people from the outside looking in could view the way that you've approached your health, like, she's just, her DNA is good, her genetics are great, like, that's amazing that she can do that. But it takes effort. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of mindfulness. And I know from my own experience that it's not just that physical transformation, like without having that mental, emotional piece in there. And for me, without having that spiritual place, that's the whole concept of Fit in Faith, is this mind, body, and soul alignment, that you need all three to feel and be your best version of yourself. So often I feel like people come to the gym and it's a release, which is amazing. It's good for you. The endorphins kick in, all of the components that happen within our body. But then there's that spiritual place and that mindset of why are you doing it? And I feel like I did it in vain for a while, and it wasn't until, and even after having kids, I did it in vain, because I was like, oh my gosh, I need my pre-baby body back. Like, I want to be back in a bathing suit right now. And it took me so much more, and kind of coming into owning myself as a mom, as having a mom bod, or whatever that means to different people. But I feel most fit in my entire life when I started that journey with you, and recognizing that it wasn't about being the fastest, and it wasn't about doing the most reps, and it wasn't about showing up to the gym even the most. I've really learned that if I go 4 times a week, like most people are like, you have to do 6, you have your day of rest. If I personally go 4 times a week and I know every amount of what's going into my body from that nutritional standpoint, and I'm getting the rest and the hydration, I feel great. I don't feel like I'm going over the top, and I don't feel like I feel sluggish if I do less, honestly. So I love that when I came to you, it wasn't about speed, and it wasn't about rep count. Like, you would say, do 10 push-ups. I'm like, what in the world? 10 push-ups? Like, I could do 100 push-ups, but are you doing them right? And that is where the mental game really kicks in with how you present the physical component of how you train. So I think it's really cool.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, it's different and what people aren't used to. I mean, you watch Shanti, and I am all for Shanti. He's awesome. But it's speed, and it's, okay, we're going to do 20, ready to go. And you do it over, and you do it over, and you do it over. So how did you learn, like, what techniques did you learn? What schooling did you do, or whatever, in order to really address that component? Because obviously running, there's a speed component to it.
Sure. So form is just is paramount, and the reason why is because if your form is crummy, then you're basically repeating poor movement patterns, and so then the brain remembers that, and then so it's like, okay, if I turn my arms out when I'm doing my push-ups, for example, and then I'm starting to recruit muscles that I shouldn't, then the body gets used to that. And you start to compensate. And so I've really tried to improve the amount of continuing education that I've had in mobility. I watch a lot of videos from physical therapists, like Kelly Starrett, Mobility WOD, those types of things, just trying to look at alignment issues, making sure that you're recruiting the correct muscles. Most recently with the groups that I've been working with, we've been doing a lot of glute activation. And they call it butt stuff. Of course. And of course we have lots of silly jokes about that. But one of the things that we've kind of had to take a step back from is some of those exercises aren't necessarily super glamorous. They're not the deadlifts. They're not the big squats. You're not in the rack. You're not necessarily burning a lot of calories. Much like how stretching is, where it's like it's the unsung hero. So in doing like the glute activation activities, for example, that's doing a lot of the almost like the Jane Fonda type movements, or things with bands and stuff. So the heart rate is lower. But if you do it correctly, then what ends up happening is you really start to work on those stabilizing muscles, so that in turn everything else is functioning properly. So even just over the last couple weeks, even though I've been saying this is going to help reduce injuries, and it's going to help your low back, and it's going to help develop your core strength, I think that people are really now just starting to see the fruits of the labor, because what they're finding is they're saying like, wow, I had no idea that I could have that much more power doing my squats once I first did those exercises beforehand. And so it's starting to like place these little seeds of saying like, okay, we've got to dial things back. Like, yes, the burpees, the explosive movements, the plyos, those all have a really important place and are really great in a fitness program. But sometimes it's those small things, the things that are with light reps or light weights are really the things that help make you need that brain and body connection, and slowing people down to really, really think about what they're doing and why they're doing it, rather than just trying to go through the reps, as rapidly as possible. So emphasis, the bottom line is just emphasis on quality versus quantity. And then just also, that ties into as we get older, we have to be a lot more conscientious about what we're doing with our bodies to maintain well-balanced muscle groups. And then just making sure that mobility and that flexibility is there.
So it's interesting because I remember coming back and it was early in the morning because the kiddos were still sleeping, and Gary would be like, how was it? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't sweat. It's so weird. I just thought it was so weird the time I would spend with you in those first couple weeks. But then I started seeing that transformation very quickly, actually. And that's because I hadn't really done anything for 3 years between my two babies. And it finally clicked. And I could never understand it. I would watch you in the gym and I'm like, I don't get what she's doing, but look at her body. That's insane. And so now, I'm around Jeannie Landis, who was on the podcast previously. Have you guys ever connected? Oh, man, y'all would get along so well. She's incredible. But she does practices flow mobility.
Oh, okay.
And so that's she had Fit Lab.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that? So, oh man, I have to connect you guys to love each other. So she really was the next person who kind of took me on that journey of what does this mean to get into a flow state. And that flow space is less about the body, though the body has something to do with it. It's more that mental space and that heart alignment to what your body is doing at any given time. I remember Gary, again, coming home, he would hey, try this exercise. And it was like holding a teacup, and you would start up at the top, and the people on the podcast can't see this, but the people live can. And you would have to never break the teacup. The teacup can't fall on the floor. And so you're really engaging so many pieces of your body. And that was the summer that Gary got in the best shape of his life, was going to Fit Lab and doing these silly exercises. Again, he always takes the curve before me. I'm like, what are you doing? You're ridiculous. And he would be sitting in the most awkward positions, and we would be having deep conversation. He's bringing his knee to his chest and flexing his thing on the kitchen table. I'm like, can you not do that right now? And I'm throwing him under the bus so much. He is amazing and has literally been a little guiding light for me through so many things. But I think it's important to have those people. And if we can just recognize that they're the differences in each component of fitness.
Oh, yeah.
And take what helps.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's across the board. Something's gonna be great and work for this person, and it's not gonna work for you. But when you hit 40, you hit 50, you hit 60, and your body doesn't jump like that. And I've already noticed that with tuck jumps. I'm like, I just don't want to do that. It actually hurts my body. And what am I trying to engage? Okay, I'm trying to engage lower ab. Well, I can do that doing this. And so adjustments in that. And it's the same thing. And I want to kind of pull it back into the other realm of not just body, but that mind and spirit is all these things you said. Form is paramount. Poor movement patterns and what that looks like, how we compensate, how our alignment is. All of those things happen so much in our life from a job perspective, from a relationships perspective, from how we mother, how we literally approach life. And there's that speed component.
Oh, yeah.
And we're so fast. Everything we do is fast. You hear the microwave society and what we expect out of things in such a short duration of time. It's just like when I came to you, I'm like, I'm not even sweating. Why do you need to sweat? What is the intent of that? Sure, it's great. It feels good. But do you need to do it 6 days a week? Likely no. And that's the other end of the fork. And that's the same way as if we're waking up doing nonstop from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. There's no rest. There's no recognition of your body being this temple because you're just utilizing it so heavily that you're now broken.
Yeah, absolutely.
On so many levels. And it's crazy how it's all connected. And I feel like from a spiritual place that God did that so intentionally to teach us, to show us and give us mile markers in our life. Hey, you need to slow down.
Yeah.
Hey, here's another red flag. You need to slow down. And we so often just zoom right past them because we are on a race, because there is this expectation of perfection. There is this expectation of achievement. And at what point, what part of your life do you get so broken, so misaligned that you're like, okay, I've got my white flag now. I'm waving it, and now I need help.
Yeah.
And so, like, what advice would you give people from those perspectives of like how to take it slow and to really be in touch with that each component of yourself when you're in a physical?
Well, I think that just like you said, that it's really easy to become distracted and be, in the rat race of life. So from like starting within the home, I think that it's really important to, start your day, being intentional with the people that you love and that you care about.
Yeah.
It's easy to shuffle the kids to get them ready, to get them ready out the door, to run around. It's even when you have the best of intentions. And so, I think just trying to look for those places where you can stop and pause and appreciate, similar to how like you had to figure out and it took time to appreciate like those things that didn't necessarily involve a ticker tape parade in the gym. The same thing applies at home, like those sweet moments of having conversations, before you go to bed with your husband, making time for each other, or making adjustments to your schedule to walk your kids out to the bus, or to pray with them at the bus stop, or to look them in the face, or my husband and I had this kind of funny conversation, this frustration with our oldest son, who's 14 now, how at the end of the night, it's almost like he's reverting back to this toddler-like behavior of wanting to tell us everything under the sun after 9 o'clock at night, where, with me, I get up at 10 to 4.
Yes.
So I hate to say it, but I'm hustling everybody to go to bed. I want to go to bed, so I want them to go to bed. And so this frustration we were finding is that it would be, after 9, and he would have finished homework and showered, and then as he's unwinding, he wants to come in and talk to us about things ranging from his music interest to playing the guitar to soccer, you name it. And on the one hand, you just want to be like, just go to bed, but then to just really be reminded that it's awesome that our teenager wants to connect with us, and for a boy to be, wanting to verbalize that much, with his parents, we've got to savor that time. So a lot of times it's taking time to disconnect. My husband does a really great job of grounding me and basically, because I'm the Energizer Bunny of the family and he's not, he is very much a good, solid person and he has plenty of energy, but he's always reminding me before I crash and burn, because I will just go and I will crash and burn. So that's one of the things that I think is really dynamic about our relationship is if you have, whether it's your spouse or a friend, someone that you love enough and that loves you enough to say like, hey, I love you. I love all of your energy, but you've got to chill out. So you need to take that pause, or maybe it's a friend or a girlfriend that can be very straightforward with you. To just say like, I love you, but I see that you're running in a million directions and less is more. And there are a couple people in my life that are that person for me. And there's a couple people that I can be, for them as well, which I'm grateful for. But I just think that it's countercultural, and that we are running on this hamster wheel. But I think that there's just so much sweetness that can be found in stepping away. And I'm as guilty as anyone else, in terms of getting caught up, but I do think that just like we appreciate the things like we said about getting back to core work or getting back to those things that are the less glamorous things. And so sometimes that means setting limits. But I do think that, when you can come to appreciate those things, that it's a really good thing.
That's really awesome. I hope my 14-year-old, when he's 14, does that. That would be amazing.
It is a very cool place to be. The boys, they still want to snuggle. My 11-year-old, and again, like I'm going to be very honest. There are many nights when it's like, I just want to get to bed, or let's hurry this along. And it's hard because you're just thinking about what's the next thing that I have to do. Well, I still have to finish the dishes and I still have to prep the coffee. And then he says, well, I want extra snuggles. And then you have to, I'd be honest if I said, if there wasn't that part of me inside that has to like really will myself to say like, linger here. And there's a lot of sweetness in lingering, but it definitely takes thought.
Yeah, it does. But you know, and that's where like I feel like if we just were more perceptive to what is being said and what is being done around us on a continual basis, whether it is in the job setting, whether it is in the home, whether it is if you're out with your friends, all of these little like words are left. And in that word lingering, especially like my son, for instance, this morning, and you're convicting me as you're saying this, the busyness is on Thursdays I have to be at work early in the morning, and that extra 30 minutes shifts the entire day. It messes everything up. We're always quote unquote late, and I can't stand it. It drives me bananas. Mind you, he's exhausted. They had field day yesterday. He's still sleeping, and I come in guns blazing because I got things to accomplish, and I'm like, okay buddy, like get on your clothes, let's go to work, let's do this. I'll take you by Dunkin' Donuts in the morning, and we'll go to school. So I'm using a bait to make him go faster. It's not working. We also have to like dedicate something to his teacher, and there's like so many things happening in life that sure, you have to get it done. We're about to go out the door. I just helped him tie his shoe. I didn't celebrate the fact that he was trying to tie his shoe, which I should have. And I'm thinking about it in my head, but I'm also thinking about the other things. I'm like, we gotta go. Okay, really good, but let me just finish it for you, And then at the same time, he kind of had a little bit of a breakdown because he's more emotional. Well, actually, they're both emotional, but him specifically, it's more dramatically emotional. And he was like, I'm not going to school, and like walks away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm going to be another 10 minutes late. I get him in the car, Daddy gets him in the car, and I'm like, you know what, buddy, I'm really sorry that I made you feel rushed this morning. Mommy doesn't like days like that. I know you're just tired and you're resting and you're sleeping in, but 2 more days and you're going to get to sleep in the rest of the summer. And I think it's really important for us to recognize in front of our children when we get it wrong.
Oh, sure.
And I have the same exact thing at night when he's like, wait, you're leaving? Won't you sleep with me? Won't you fall asleep with me? Won't you? And he says the same thing, like cuddle bug, or he's like, come here, my little snuggle. And I'm like, come and snuggle him. And then I'm like, okay, he's sleeping. I'm going to sneak out. Wait, you're leaving? And I'm like, oh, I have to do so many things. So I really love that word linger. I think that isn't there a song? I think Alanis Morissette.
It was the Cranberries or something.
There you go. That's awesome. I'm totally going to make that the intro. Linger. It's just such a beautiful word. And I think as a society, there's the word rest, especially from the standpoint of faith. Like biblically, we're told to rest so often. We're told to be still and know that I am God. Like just to really stand in that space. And yet on every other front, we're told to do something different. Our bodies want to keep moving. I want to sweat. But if you just linger just a little bit longer, what goodness comes from that? I was at work this morning and had a girl who was chatting with me about her own kind of physical journey and her eating and what I do versus what she does. And I'm supposed to be working. And I'm thinking in my head, I have so many things to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be so intentional because I've never had this conversation with her. And we're getting paid anyway, so let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And it ended up being like a 45-minute conversation. We were both emotional. We're both vulnerable. Both have tears in our eyes, able to hug each other at the end of the time. And she's like, that was really needed. And it was just, it's a moment of taking hold of the opportunities that are right in front of you. So I admire the fact that when you're at your job, you still have your emotional and heart, ear like open to people. It makes that experience that much better, that much sweeter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though it's hard and we have our own stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that one of the other things that comes to mind while you were talking about lingering and also being vulnerable enough in front of your son to apologize is that's just a real great example of grace and asking him for forgiveness and number one, recognizing that mom's not right. And then also how you have to deal with that yourself in terms of guilt. And I think that one of the other really important components in wellness is definitely there's grace as a spiritual component, but also just kind of trying to, I use the word grace and I certainly don't mean it sacrilegiously to suggest that we should have grace in terms of some of the things, the way that we perceive ourselves, or the way that we treat ourselves in terms of the body image and the discussion. And it just made me think about it, like when you were saying, you know, I felt so bad, and we do beat ourselves up as parents. You know, we certainly don't get it right all the time, but you know, and there's a lot of times where I'm left thinking, oh, I should have done that differently. But I think that you know, in thinking about the way that Christ forgives us, and how we have to forgive our children and our spouses, sometimes I think that one of the things that I try to encourage people is to demonstrate grace to themselves, in terms of trying to be reasonable and be a better friend, almost, if you will, to yourself. Like, a lot of times I think that the person that I've been the most horrible to or the most critical is to myself. And so I think that that's also a really important component of wellness, is so true. As we age, our expectations of ourselves and our bodies need to change, because otherwise, you know, I'm never going to look like I did when I was 18. I sure wish I did, but I'd be a very wealthy person if I could make that happy for everyone, or happen for everyone. But I just think that, like, the expectations need to change. The expectations need to be reasonable and gracious. And so, you know, whether or not you're on a fitness journey for the first time or you're a well-seasoned athlete, think that if you can kind of find that sweet spot of, like you're saying, how for you it's going to the gym 4 days a week. For someone else it might be 3 or 2 or just getting started. But not to compare is really hard. And then also to just give yourself that space and that grace to try and do your best. But that doesn't mean that it's either I'm over here eating donuts or I'm over here, you know, as a perfectionist. There's that whole space and that huge pendulum. And I think that part of when you were asking me about, like, how do you get to a place of being content and being peaceful and having joy, is finding that sweet spot for yourself. And there needs to be some self-forgiveness, and self-acceptance, which is really, really valuable. From my own experience, when I say, like, I've learned and I've done things, you know, the wrong way, I've really done things the wrong way. You know, one of the main reasons why I left competitive, or being in a Division I collegiate program, was we were really, really heavily and negatively influenced regarding our weight. And so that was a really, really difficult thing for me to deal with in college. Was we were running 70 miles a week. We were being told that we were too heavy. And so you start to, when you're fed that information, you start to believe it. And so that became something that was just really, really difficult in regard to body image. And I was doing lots of really bad behaviors that, you know, could have potentially had very lifelong implications and dangerous implications. And so learning how to break those habits and those thought patterns has been a journey that's taken 20 years. But definitely one that needed to happen. And when you can get to that place where you can kind of break those cycles, there's a lot of peace in that. And then that way you're not measuring yourself compared to either the way you looked or the way that you performed, you know, years ago, or even in the workplace or as a mom, like having realistic expectations, and those expectations of yourself are going to change because circumstances change, or your ability changes, or, you know, whatever the case may be. But I'm finding that I'm using that word more and more frequently with people who are my clients and friends, is just like, show yourself a little grace. Like, you would never tell a friend, you know, hey, you're horrible because you didn't come. But yet someone is actually feeling that way about themselves, or feeling like they're unworthy, or, you know, that they're, you know, less than stellar because of, you know, their jeans are fitting too tight this week or whatever. Like, you would never say that to a friend, or you would never say that to someone that you cared about. But, you know, how many times are we necessarily, you know, thinking those things? And so that's a good self-practice, which takes a lot of work.
That is it does. And it's ever evolving. It's going to be forever more, because we're going to come into a new season, and in a new season it's going to shift things. So it is definitely a practicing self-love and being aware of your identity through that, which is where we kind of started this conversation. you don't just know who you are and then boom, everything comes to fruition. It doesn't work like that.
Sure.
It's an ever evolving identity. Like, you're going to come into a new passion. How do I explore that? And then again, when you get into a comfort zone of, okay, I know who I am. I'm loving myself well right now. Everything's going, no, nothing just goes like smooth as butter. It doesn't work that way. But I love, even from the beginning where you said, I'm going to put myself out of my comfort zone. And so to know that when you put yourself out of your comfort zone, that's where you need the most grace. Because not only are you trying something new and you're putting yourself into this space of, okay, I'm going to work out more times, or I'm going to try to adjust this into my diet, or I'm going to try to treat other people this way, you're not always going to get it right. The donut's going to wave in front of you and you're going to want to eat it.
Sure.
Is it worth it today? Is it a celebration that you feel, I deserve this today, and not out of deserving and having to calorie count, but out of, it's a fun time and I want to rest. I want to linger in this moment with my daughter who loves strawberry sprinkled donuts.
Sure.
And I'm going to cheers her with my little donut hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so many different ways, and that's where that pendulum, I love that visual expression of that, is that you're going to have the days that are really high, you're going to have the days that are low. Sometimes it's not going to feel like nothing's happening at all and you really feel lost. But to keep going after the good days, and they do exist.
Sure.
And the good moments exist right alongside the grief moments.
Absolutely.
And we're all dealing with that, and that's where that grace really needs to come into play. We tend to give each other more grace than we give ourselves, like you said. And I had heard this week, someone said that grieving is breathing. I was like, explain that to me a little bit more. I just pondered over her words as she kind of continued. And she said, just like an addict would wake up every day and commit to themselves that today is the day, they have to breathe through every moment of that day. So grieving is the exact same way. And in some facet or another, we're all grieving. We're grieving the loss of someone we love. We're grieving a relationship that's gone awry. We're grieving an expectation that we didn't meet. We're grieving these self-reflective moments of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy. And while that may not always be, it's surely not where God would want us to rest, sometimes that's where we can't get out of. And if we can look at it from the other pendulum and see it as breathing, as this active opportunity to get one step closer to the healthiness, the wellness, the wholeness that we all want, it would allow us to see every moment of grief as a moment of grace. And so it's just really resonated with me, and something I feel like it kind of paired into what we were talking about. So do you have anything? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll have to chew on that a little bit more and think about that.
And how that plays into our life. And because I think if we have a singing person in the hallway, I couldn't ignore that. That's awesome. But just if we all just resonate over the fact of self-love and know that that's all encompassing of the good and the bad, and to just be working towards our best form of ourselves, and that's going to be mind, body, and soul at all points of our day, our moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I definitely think just trying to be the best version of yourself today.
Yeah.
Like when you hear the phrase, like people saying like, oh, well, give 50-50 to the relationship. And then, but really what you want to do in all circumstances is give 100%.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean perfection. It just means what do you bring to the table today? Give your best today. So maybe it's, you have that crazy hectic Thursday where you have to be at work at Thursday and things are not going to go smooth as silk. But if you can just try and shoot for the best of what the day will hold, so or whether or not you're going to work and you're facing a deadline and, and it's going to be a grind. Well, just trying to give what you can for the day.
Yeah. So
and realizing that tomorrow's best is going to look different than today's, but
that's
give
really
or take
good.
on either way, then I just think that
I feel like that's even more beneficial than being the best version of yourself. It's adding that today makes such a different component.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you're again striving.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I want to be better than yesterday, which is the concept.
Sure. But
every day you're going to experience different emotions. You're going to interact in a different way. There's going to be something else that you're dealing with, good or bad. And so, it's more about that moment, that day, and being that intentional.
Yeah, I agree.
I love that. I think that's really amazing. So I have so enjoyed our time together.
Thank you. Me too. It's been wonderful.
Isn't it different than
it is.
What you
really
expect
is.
it to be?
Yes.
You never know where conversations go, and I think literally, I don't know if I think lingering is going to be the title of this one. But thinking about that concept of lingering, if you can dedicate even time to yourself to linger with yourself, linger with your emotions, linger with that opportunity of self-love. Maybe it's at the gym. Maybe that's where you're lingering that day. Maybe it's in a quiet time, or maybe it's in a dedicated time like this. I feel like if we all lingered a little bit longer, we would have a more peaceful ambiance about our own lives, and therefore every ripple effect to be more peaceful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I can't wait to hear about the Hoyt race. I'm totally going to
thank
chime
you.
in. Good luck. Good luck. I want to see all your. Do you do a medal tree like my mom?
Actually, I keep everything in boxes.
Do
No,
you?
yeah.
You should try it. Because
Okay.
when she did that, have you seen her medal tree?
I knew about it. The Christmas tree?
Yes,
that's
the Christmas
awesome.
tree with all the medals. And it's just it's once a year. So you're not showcasing it in this like medallion way every single day. Like, here's my wall. But it's like a fun commemoration, and it's a fun flashback for your kids, for their friends, and
that's a great idea.
Space too.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you to do that, because
Okay.
I love the journey you've done, and I think it's got a lot more races ahead, but so do we all, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks.
I'm Tamara Andress. I'm your Fit and Faith host, and I am so excited to just be here to share with you other movers, dreamers, shakers, entrepreneurs, pastors, whatever. If you've got a head and you've got a heart, I'm so excited to explore who that is, whose you are, and discover your wholeness, your health, your wealth, and your joy. I love to exude happiness. I want people to know that this is not, this came with trial. You guys, this came with a lot of effort. This came with a lot of lows and so many highs. And I want us to experience those together. This is a real community of dreamers, and I'm excited to help catapult your calling, your kingdom experience, the purpose of your imprint on the world, wherever, however that is. So come along for the ride. I'm excited to chat with you. Like, comment, review, send me a DM, send me an email. It's me responding, even though I have an incredible team. And so I'm just excited to get to know you. Let's connect, let's create community, and let's walk in our calling.